The medieval period in Europe is often slapped with a rather gloomy label: the Dark Ages.
It's a popular idea. The sophisticated, toga-wearing Roman civilization collapses, and suddenly everyone is rolling around in the mud for 1,000 years until the Renaissance. But history is rarely that simple. The Middle Ages wasn't just an era of war, famine, and plague. It was a dynamic, 1,000-year stretch of incredible transformation, survival, and invention that laid the exact foundations of our modern world. But to truly understand the medieval era, we cannot start in the middle. We have to rewind to the ancient world's most spectacular crash and burn, the fall of the Western Roman Empire. In the 2nd century AD, Rome was the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. It had one professional army, one highly centralized legal system, and an economic machine that dominated the Mediterranean. But nothing lasts forever. The cracks in the empire and the fall of the West. By the 3rd century, Rome was bleeding from civil wars, political assassinations, and an economy on the brink of ruin. To make the empire easier to manage, it was split down the middle, a western half governed from Italy and an eastern half governed from Constantinople. This split was a death sentence for the West. The Western Roman Empire was poorer, its borders were longer, and it was directly in the path of a massive refugee crisis. In the late 4th century, a terrifying nomadic force known as the Huns swept out of the Eurasian steppe, pushing thousands of Germanic tribes, like the Goths, right into Roman territory. Rome tried to recruit these desperate refugees as soldiers, but broken promises and corruption led to absolute disaster. In 410 AD, the unthinkable happened. The Visigoths, starving and betrayed, sacked the city of Rome. It was the first time the Eternal City had fallen in 800 years. The psychological shockwave was massive. Over the next few decades, the Western Roman army disintegrated. Taxes dried up, and vital grain shipments were cut off as tribes like the Vandals seized North Africa. Finally, in 476 AD, the charade ended. A Germanic warlord named Odoacer marched into Italy, deposed the final child emperor Romulus Augustulus, and simply declared himself king of Italy. The Western Roman Empire was dead. Antiquity was over. The Middle Ages had begun. The power vacuum and the church. With Rome gone, Western Europe became a dangerous and fractured place. The incredibly complex Roman infrastructure that had kept Europe stable vanished. Aqueducts dried up, stone roads decayed, and standing armies disappeared. Trade collapsed so severely that Roman coins became virtually worthless, forcing people to revert to a barter economy. Without Roman schools, literacy plummeted. If there is any time in history that actually earns the title of the Dark Ages, it is this chaotic transition in the early medieval era. But nature abhors a vacuum. The western provinces were suddenly free real estate. Germanic tribes carved out their own independent kingdoms, inadvertently drawing the early borders of modern European nations. The Franks took over Gaul, giving us the name France. The Anglo-Saxons migrated across the North Sea to settle in Britain. These new kingdoms were independent and fiercely local, but they lacked a unifying law. They found their bridge to the old Roman world through the only institution that survived the collapse, the Catholic Church. When Germanic kings like Clovis of the Franks converted to Catholicism, they gained something priceless: divine legitimacy. A blessing from the Pope meant a king's right to rule was ordained by God. Furthermore, the Church kept the Latin language and Roman administrative skills alive, giving these new kings the educated monks and clerks they needed to run their realms. The East survives, and the rise of Islam. But we can't forget about the other half of the map. While the West was fracturing, the Eastern Roman Empire was absolutely thriving. Today, historians call them the Byzantine Empire to avoid confusion, but make no mistake, they considered themselves entirely Roman. In the 6th century, the ambitious Byzantine Emperor Justinian attempted to put the old empire back together. He sent his brilliant general Belisarius to reconquer North Africa, Spain, and even Italy. They succeeded, but the victory was hollow. A massive volcanic eruption triggered global cooling, leading to crop failures. This was immediately followed by the plague of Justinian, a pandemic that wiped out millions. Exhausted and depopulated, the Byzantines couldn't hold the West. Soon after, the geopolitical map was flipped upside down. In the 7th century, the Arab tribes united under a new religion, Islam. Bursting out of the Arabian Peninsula, Muslim armies swiftly conquered the exhausted Persian Empire and stripped the Byzantines of Syria, Egypt, and Palestine. By 711 AD, the Umayyad Caliphate crossed into Europe, conquering the Visigoths in Spain. They pushed deep into France, threatening to swallow Western Europe whole. But in 732, at the Battle of Tours, a Frankish leader named Charles Martel, Charles the Hammer, stopped their advance, securing the dominance of Christianity in Western Europe. Charles Martel's victory set the stage for the most powerful dynasty of the early Middle Ages. His grandfather, Charlemagne, was a military genius and a ruthless conqueror. In a 30-year span, Charlemagne achieved what everyone thought was impossible. He united vast stretches of Western Europe, bringing a level of stability not seen since the height of Rome. Charlemagne wasn't just a warlord, he was a devout defender of the papacy. When the Pope was physically attacked by political rivals in Rome, Charlemagne rode to his rescue. In return, on Christmas Day in the year 800 AD, the Pope crowned Charlemagne the Emperor of the Romans. This brilliant political move formally severed the West's ties to the Byzantine Empire and birthed a brief golden age of learning and art known as the Carolingian Renaissance. But holding an empire of that size together in the early Middle Ages was a monumental task. When Charlemagne died, his heirs fought bitterly over the crown. In 843, the Treaty of Verdun divided his massive empire into 3 pieces, laying the early geographical groundwork for modern France and Germany. And this fracture couldn't have happened at a worse time. Invasions, castles, and the birth of feudalism. As the 9th century dawned, Europe found itself under siege from all sides. Islamic Saracens raided the southern coasts. Fearsome horse nomads called the Magyars attacked from the east, and from the icy north came the most legendary raiders of them all, the Vikings. Expert navigators and shipbuilders, these Norse pagans used their shallow draft longships to sail right up European rivers, striking deep inland before any army could react. Kings simply didn't have the central authority or the rapid communication networks to protect their vast territories from these lightning-fast raids. Because the kings couldn't defend the people, defense had to become hyper-local. This existential crisis birthed the social system of the Middle Ages, feudalism. It worked like a pyramid. A king, rich in land but poor in cash and soldiers, would grant large chunks of territory to regional lords. In exchange, the lords swore absolute loyalty. To defend this land, the lords handed out smaller parcels to elite professional warriors, the knights. A medieval knight was incredibly expensive to maintain, requiring years of training, custom armor, and war horses. They were essentially the heavy tanks of the medieval battlefield. At the absolute bottom of this pyramid were the peasants, or serfs. They were legally bound to the land, working the fields to feed the knights and lords. In return, they got the one thing they desperately needed: protection. To anchor this defense, the landscape of Europe physically changed. Lords built fortified structures, starting as simple wooden Motte-and-Bailey towers and eventually evolving into massive stone fortresses. The castle had arrived. It was the ultimate symbol of local power, a tax center, and a safe haven during Viking or Magyar raids.